GTA 6's trailer 1 has over 200 million views, which obviously is absolutely crazy for a video game trailer. But I wonder how many people that viewed this trailer noticed some of the errors that Rockstar actually has in the gameplay footage. There's actually quite a few, and in today's video I want to go over these errors because number one, it shows that Rockstar are human. Even Rockstar makes mistakes. Number two, it also just shows that this is actual in-game footage. Some of these errors will probably end up being in the game when it launches because that's just how games work. And number three, maybe this puts some realistic expectations for people. Even though it is Rockstar, even though this game has billions upon billions of dollars behind it, even though it's been in development for what, like 8 years now, it probably isn't gonna be 100% perfect. So some people's expectations out there, I think, are a little too high. Maybe this puts things a bit into perspective. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the video. Now, I actually want to start off with this bit of news because I saw this morning. GTA 6 is now the longest title to not receive any update from Rockstar since the first trailer. GTA 5 took 253 days before you got screenshots. RDR 2 took 214 days before you got screenshots after trailer 1. And we are now on, I believe, 257 days from trailer 1. And it's ongoing because we still don't know when we're going to be getting screenshots for GTA 6. So obviously the tweet says, like, could this be a sign for future delay? We're not going to get into that topic. I don't think that's going to happen. But I thought this was pretty relevant to this video because maybe it just means and shows that Rockstar really are trying to, strive for perfection, and they don't want to put anything else out there until it is perfect, which maybe isn't the best mindset because is anything ever going to be perfect? Probably not, but I'm sure that's what they're shooting for behind the scenes. But it is crazy that this is now the longest we've ever had to wait before we got something from Rockstar after trailer 1. How long do you think that's going to continue? I guess that'll be a question you guys can answer in the comment section down below. But let's hop into the trailer now, and we're going to take a look at some of these errors. Now, what's a little bit crazy is it's taken me at least this long to find these errors, 8 months later. And that's just because on the millions of times I've rewatched trailer 1, I'm not looking at errors, right? I'm looking at all the cool stuff Rockstar added to the trailer, and I'm sure so many other people did that as well. So you didn't notice these things, but there are actually some errors in this trailer. And the one big scene that has a few of them is actually this car scene. I guess it's like a music video. I think that's what they're sort of filming here. But there are actually a couple of errors in this scene that I wanted to point out. And we're actually going to hop into a Photoshop here just so I can zoom in on these screenshots just to make things a little bit easier. But if you do dive deeper into the scene, one of the things you might notice, at least that was noticeable to me, was shadows, and maybe the lack of shadows in a couple of places here. If I go ahead and zoom in up at the top here, you can see some of these NPCs and objects have shadows because, of course, that's what lights do. They project shadows, right? Like, they're not the most detailed shadows, but there's a light behind them, so they cast shadows. Even down here at the bottom right, you can see some of these NPCs also cast shadows again because there's a light behind them. You can see there's a shadow here, a couple shadows here. But over here on the left, we have a noticeable lack of shadows, even though they do have these pretty bright lights behind them. Now, these cars kind of have a little shadow here, again, because the light's behind them, but the people, the NPCs, they sort of don't. And I will say this isn't necessarily an error so much as it's just, I think, hardware limitations. This actually happens if you go into GTA 5, you take some footage in the Rockstar editor, you go into the Rockstar editor and you zoom out. The further away you go, the less shadows actually happen. And that's just because of hardware limitations. Like the hardware just can't render every single person's detailed shadows. So it really only I guess chooses the shadows that are closer to the camera or like the player. So like the people up here and maybe over here on the bottom left, maybe that's where this Rockstar editor clip was sort of taken from. And so these people on the left, they have less shadows. I don't know if that's the case, but that's just how it worked in GTA 5. So I'm only speculating there, but there is sort of a lack of shadows here. And again, that's just probably because of hardware limitations. So that's something that you could maybe classify as an error because it's not super realistic, but it is something that might probably be in the game. Like even these people over here don't really have shadows. Another thing I noticed, and this maybe is just like a funny thing, but if we zoom in here at the very bottom right, let me go ahead and get these guys in the center of the frame. These NPCs just out in the distance, they're sort of using the same pose. They all have their right arm kind of like arched. And that is maybe something, again, just is a hardware limitation. There's so many NPCs already in the scene doing so many different things like cheering and all that. Maybe there's a limitation again on the hardware that only, you know, a set amount of NPCs can do certain things, and these people out here maybe got left out. But yeah, that's sort of a minor little thing. But yeah, they all do have this same sort of pose. And speaking of poses in this scene, at the top right up here, I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in, get this guy in the center of the frame. You really can't even see him. For really any of this, I had to brighten it. Like if I turn it down, you wouldn't even notice there's a person here. But if we do brighten the scene, you can kind of see there's a person here. This guy is actually T-posed, which also could be like a hardware limitation thing. Maybe it's what we just talked about. This is, I believe, at the beginning of the scene. Here's a screenshot. Let's get him back in center from the end of this short little scene. And he doesn't move at all. His arms are T-pose, not full T-pose like in a straight line, but sort of Y-pose. I don't know. Come up with a name for this, but it's something that does happen to NPCs. I believe they happen in GTA 5 and RDR2. If certain situations occur, NPCs can T-pose, and it does look like that is what is happening here to this particular NPC. So even in trailer 1, this, you know, I'm sure meticulously crafted thing Rockstar has come up with, there's even an NPC T-posing, which is kind of a big error, right? It's not noticeable until you super zoom in and then also crank up the brightness. I mean, I can crank it up even more, and you can see that this guy is just T-posing. We'll go back to the other shot, and okay, you really can't even see much, but he is in basically the same position. He's also looking away from everything, which is a little strange. And then the final thing regarding this screenshot and this scene, and I don't know if this is an error or if this is just the lack of development time. Maybe this is going to get changed, but this storefront looks pretty basic. It looks like a GTA 5-esque storefront where you can't go inside. It doesn't even look like there's an interior. It sort of just looks like it's a 2D picture on this. And I'm not going to, you know, say too much about that just because when they recorded this trailer, this is probably about 2 years before the game releases. So this could always change, but it is something I wanted to bring up. I brought this up before in the trailer 1 like analysis videos, but hopefully we don't see a lot of this sort of stuff in the game. Hopefully they can fix that. But that's the first scene. That's what, 4 errors ish right off the bat. Let's now hop to this scene, the scene where you can see the aircraft looking over a bridge, you know, presumably going to the Key West area of the map. Really cool scene. A lot of stuff here that we've already dissected. You know, you got some animals down here in the bottom left, you know, a couple of boats and stuff. But one thing I've never noticed, and it's really noticeable now that I've seen it, if we do zoom in here at the bottom left, and we take a look at this road, ew, that is bad. There's a texture seam, again, presumably because of hardware limitations, and it's just out of the render range for the textures. It goes from the relatively higher quality textures on the right here, and there's just a big old gap, and then it goes to the lower quality textures, like the grass just ends. Even though this is super low resolution, you can still see that this is a lower resolution texture on the left compared to the right. That is a pretty egregious one. And it's unfortunate because, again, who is looking, like when we go back out to the normal thing. Who is looking at the bottom left for this, right? Everyone's looking everywhere else because there's just so many cool things in this scene. But yeah, down here, the bottom left, Rockstar, you kind of messed up. The next error is actually found in this scene where we have Lucia and Jason driving on like the interstate in this sports car. This is the start of the scene, and I'm bringing this up because you can see over here on the left, we have a street light, which of course produces light. There's light down here on this this middle barrier. Towards the end of the scene, again, we have a street light in the center. There's light on this barrier. Where there is no light, it's very dark, obviously, in here, you know. But if we do look even further, I don't know if this is an error, if it's a hardware limitation. This street light is off. Like, there is no light. It's clear. There is no light. Yet right below it on the barrier, there is light. And there's not like there's a car looking at it from, you know, this direction, projecting light. If anything, this would be the car over here. You can see the light, the car, it's white, where this is more of a yellow. This could be a hardware limitation, and the only reason I'm saying that is because maybe that's like a little bit too far for this light to render as being on, yet the ambient light is still sort of on. But yeah, again, it's small things like this, but it just goes to show that even Rockstar maybe makes mistakes, even though people have high expectations and think this game is going to be perfection across the board, small stuff like this is bound to happen where the light is off, yet the game or this texture thinks the light is on. This next error is another shadow related error, and it's something I didn't really notice until recently, which is kind of disappointing for me because I've looked at this scene so many times. But of course, this is the beginning of the trailer. We have like the camera panning up about to show us Vice City, but we have this flock of birds. Now, these are relatively normal sized birds. Maybe they're pelicans or something, like a somewhat bigger bird. But if we look below them, look at these shadows. These shadows are gigantic. To put it into perspective, this is a normal person on a jet ski. It looks like down here, this is like a shark. These shadows are bigger than this guy on a jet ski. Almost as big as this shark. That does not seem right. The sun, as we all know it, is like millions of miles away. The sun would have to be like right above this frame for their shadows to be that big. I'm not an expert on shadows and all that, but something is off with this. I'm not entirely sure why or what is off, but yeah, these shadows are gigantic compared to the relatively normal sized birds that are in the sky. So that's another thing that is just weird, I guess. I wanted to quickly bring up this scene, the beach scene, which there's not a whole lot wrong with this, in my opinion. And even what I'm going to bring up, I don't know if is necessarily like wrong, but it's something a little odd. Obviously, a bunch of NPCs. If we zoom in here on the right-hand side, there's just these NPCs that, are they Jesus? Are they just standing on water? I know like the tide can come in a bit, but it seems like maybe they're a bit too far out, especially if there's a boat. Like if this is that shallow, this boat should not be that close. So I think that's just maybe a little oversight on like where NPCs were placed in this particular scene. But it is kind of funny to look at this and think something's a little off here. Like the people here, her leg is under the water, yet these people, they're on top of the water. So that's just another little odd thing there. I want to quickly go on to this scene in, I guess, the strip club, Make It Rain Mondays. If we zoom in here on the far left, I don't know if this is just like an artifact of some sort, if it maybe there is a light like above the camera that we can't see, but this NPC's hair is just red like throughout the whole scene. Here's another one where she's in the dark. Maybe it's a glowing headband. I mean, maybe that's the explanation here, but that was just an odd thing considering she's the only person in this entire scene that just has red hair. So maybe that's just a glowing hair issue, but I figured while we're talking about some of these errors, maybe this is one of them. A funny thing in this scene, I just wanted to point out, not an error, but like, is that our GTA Online character? That's what this looks like. This guy's wearing like a full biker outfit. You can't even see their face in the strip club. And then the final error is actually in this lovely scene. And it's actually not even about the game itself. It's about the text. And look, this could be just an oversight. This could be just how it is in the GTA world. But it is kind of funny. They say someone call the Department of Transport on this dump truck. Well, if you actually Google the Department of Transport, that's actually a UK thing. And as many people are aware, Rockstar have a pretty big development team over in the UK. I think it's in Scotland. But if you actually Google that, in the US, it's actually called the Department of Transportation and not the Department of Transport. So looking back at the scene, I don't know if this was, again, just something like a just complete oversight. Maybe one of the UK guys was writing this and they put Department of Transport. Maybe that's just how it is in the GTA universe. I'm not entirely sure, but it is kind of a little funny thing. Maybe it's a mistake, maybe it's not. But that is the last thing we're going to end on in this video. Maybe there are more mistakes or errors in this trailer. I mean, I tried my best to try and find them, but if I missed any, of course, let us know in the comment section if you found any. Ultimately, though, look, this is just some minor stuff I've nitpicked in this video. If anything, seeing the stuff is good because, again, it shows none of this is pre-rendered. This is gameplay footage we're all seeing. And it does also just show that the game is still in development. Some of the stuff will probably end up getting fixed when the game does release next year. But that is going to go ahead and do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Please drop the video a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more GTA 6 content. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.